everyone, how's it going? It's Jason here. In today's video, I'm going to be mixing a song from start to finish using nothing but stock plugins and freeware. The idea for this came from an Instagram thing I did on my story some time ago. I was asking people what kind of stuff they would like to see on my YouTube channel, and someone mentioned that they would like to see the basics of mixing. And that's what I'm going to do. This is going to be bare bones, basic approach to mixing a song. And like I said, I'm only going to use stock plugins, and I'm only going to use freeware plugins that you can get for nothing. And I will include links to everything. So let's dive in. The very first thing that I'm going to do is I have my session open here in Studio One, and I have my folder of stems open next to me, next to Studio One here on the screen. So I'm going to open this tempo track in Studio One, and this is how you sync MIDI, or sync your tempo to MIDI. You'll just take your MIDI file here and drop it onto the tempo track, and there's our tempo. And then I'm going to drag all these stems in, and you can hold Control Shift and click on the first and the last stem, and bam, they're all there, all good to go. And they'll all drop in right at measure one. Well, looks like some of these dropped in out of order. So the first thing I'm going to do is sort that out. Grab 1 through 12. I'm going to drag them all here. All right, so now I'm going to organize these first 4 tracks. And again, I'm holding Control Shift to select multiple tracks at once. These are like drum post-production, so I'm going to make them a light blue here. And I'm going to right-click in Studio One, and I'm going to pack a folder. Any DAW should have the ability to do this. This is just how you do it in Studio One. You'll just may have to Google how to do that in your particular DAW. Then I'm going to open this, and I'm going to open up my mixer window down here, and I'm going to select all these again. And I'm going to add a bus for selected channels. And this is going to be my drum post bus. Okay, now I'm going to find, these are all my drum tracks here. I'm going to make them blue. Right click, pack a folder. I'm going to name this drums. I'm going to open this up, select all these, right click, add bus for selected channels, and this is going to be my drum bus. The reason I'm doing the folder thing is it's organizational. You can actually put your bus tracks on the folders, but I like to route them over here to the side of the mixer. Then here are all my bass tracks. I'm going to make them purple, pack up a bass folder. Then I'm going to find them here and create my bus. All right. And all these here are my guitar tracks. I included reamps that I did. I don't remember what I used for these reamps. And I also included DI tracks as well. I may try doing this with like a freeware amp sim plugin, or I may wind up using the one that I've got. I don't know. It just depends. We'll see what happens when I get to guitars. Then same deal. Pack my folder. And all these down here. Oh, I didn't create my guitar bus yet. Let me do that real quick. Guitar bus. And then all of these down here are different string and synthesizer post-production stuff. So I'm going to Control Shift, and I'm just going to make these all that color. Then I'll pack my folder. I'll just call this Strings and Synth. And then I will make a bus track for those. All right, so now that I have all my folders set up for my screen organization here and I have all my buses routed, what's cool about this is, looky here, now I can solo out and just get drums. Just have bass. Just have guitars. Yeah. All right, and that is why I like adding everything into buses. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to work out my panning. These first whole bunch here are all stereo tracks, so I'm just going to leave them alone since they're stereo. As you can see here, they're already panned. The bass tracks, we'll leave them just up the center. And I've got two tone prints. I've got a clean and a filth track for the bass. And I'm just going to mute the DI for now. And now I'll open up the guitars. And I'll pan the rhythm guitars hard left and hard right. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the DIs. And for now, I'm going to mute the guitar DI tracks. And these, all these post-production tracks, these are all from virtual instruments that I'd, programmed MIDI or played on my keyboard. And they are already panned as well, other than these two, which these are, I used a plugin called Vocal Synth, and I actually tracked out the melody that I wanted with these, and I ran them through Vocal Synth to make them just sound inhuman, and they kind of sound more like a bass string instrument kind of thing. So yeah. And we'll get to how to process and deal with all these as we move through here. I wanted to use something that was kind of dense. So for now, I'm going to just go through at the channel level, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a rough balance first before I start applying any processing to anything. Now that I have kind of gone through and roughly balanced everything, I'm going to mute out, I'm going to start muting out buses. And I like to start with my drums when I'm mixing. So I'm going to go through what all these drum tracks are. For the drums, I used Get Good Drums Architects, which it's really cool. They're pre-mixed libraries. A lot of people who are doing like content creation, which I figure that'll probably be the majority of the people watching this, are folks who want to make their guitar videos sound cool and that kind of thing. They're using things like Easy Drummer and like the pre-mixed Get Good Drums libraries because you get a good sound quickly, and they're very awesome for that. So I printed these out as audio. I'm going to hop over to a different session here to walk through what's going on with each channel. If you're using one of the pre-mixed Get Good Drums libraries, the very first channel, if they've got like the reverb here, the very first channel on their outputs will always be that reverb channel. So that's what that sounds like. And then to the second channel here, I have the kick. And then I've got the snare. Had a plate reverb on there. And then the toms go to these 3 channels, which I'll show you here. Tom 1, 2, and 3. And then I have my overheads here. And then here is the room mic track. Which I have gone in here, and I have, in the room mic section here, I've dropped down the cymbals and the reverb. And I've dropped down here over the kick going to the room. And I brought up the snare and the toms. But I took down the cymbals going to that stuff. The cymbals and the kick going to the room. To make it more just, you know, I want to liven up the shells with it. And yeah, I printed all these tracks out as audio, and that's what we have over here in our drum folder. I'm going to turn this reverb down when I'm first getting started, and I'm going to start processing the drums. I think the first thing that I'm going to use is, this is actually a freeware plugin, and I think it is the Boot EQ. This is a preamp and equalizer plugin that is totally free. So I'm going to kick this on the tube on, and I'm going to kick this up to vintage, and I'm going to start playing around with this and see what we've got going on straight out of the gate. Looks like there's a good amount of compression going on straight out of the gate, which I'm going to back off on that. I don't want to do too much compression with this. And plus, from where this is a pre-mixed drum library, I'm not going to go crazy with processing, but I am going to show you some basic stuff. I think I'm going to just kick this on and off. So you can hear what this one really is for. It adds a little bit of like saturation. It's a super subtle difference. But it is there, and I'm probably going to apply this. I'm just going to stick this on all the drum tracks, and it's a subtle difference when it's on one track by itself, but when you put it on a whole group of tracks, like an entire drum bus, and you take it in and out, you'll be able to hear a more pronounced difference between the two. All right, yeah, so super subtle difference, but it does add just a little bit of weight and character just by going straight through it. And I'm going to use the EQ section of it as well. I think for this kick, I want it to be a bit more snappy, so I'm going to add some of this high filter here. It's a fixed frequency here, and you have the control of the bandwidth here, but I think I'm just going to leave it right in the middle because I think that sounds good. A nice little bell boost there up top. And I also think it could use a bit more aggression in the upper mids. So I'm going to look somewhere in this range between like 5,000 hertz and 8.9 thousand hertz to add a bit of aggression. I'm going to drop in a boost here, and I'll play this, and I'll sweep this around. And this will just add a bit more aggression and a bit more like forwardness to the kick, doing a slight boost here. I think I like that around 5K. I'll just go with a little 4 dB boost there. A lot of times in drums, in the low mids, there will be some frequencies that kind of build up and get a little ugly. So I'm going to hunt around for those, and I'm going to do a slight scoop in the low mids, and I'll do the same thing. I'll start with a boost here, and I'll sweep this around until I find the ugly frequencies, and then I'll dip them out. Yeah, you hear how that's like real honky. And I'll just do a slight dip there to deal with that. So now our difference that we've got going on. Yeah, see, we're already getting somewhere with this kick. You know, like I said, these are pre-processed, so you really haven't got to do much with these. I mean, these are similar EQ moves to what I would do on a full mix of a drum kit as well. They'd just likely be a bit more extreme in places. I would like it to have a bit more low end, like power and some ass behind it. So I'm gonna find somewhere between 100 and 200 hertz and probably put a boost there. And I'll do the same deal. I'll make a big boost here, and I'll sweep this around until I find a frequency that I like boosted. And that's what I'll roll with. Yeah, so a little boost there at around 115 hertz. I'll normally go somewhere between 1 and 200 for this boost on kick drums. Before and after. Yeah, see, it's just got a bit more weight and some power, and you know, I didn't go too crazy with that EQ or compression on this. Just some slight moves, and that got it a lot closer to where it should be. The next thing I am going to do is I'm going to add in, this is a stock Studio One plugin, and I'm just going to use this for a bit of compression and another layer of equalization, but it's going to be a graphic style EQ. I'm going to kick this compression on. I'm going to shoot for, I want it to be at about 3 decibels of reduction on the fast double kick rolls, like on the machine gun shit, because this particular compressor here, it got a bit slower attack and a more natural release. What I'm using it for is to slightly duck the kicks on really fast runs. I don't do a whole lot of compression on drum close mics, especially not here with a pre-mixed kit. I will do some parallel compression later, and I'll blend the two so I have still maintain the transient and the attack of the close mics, because I didn't compress them too much, but then I've got the sustain and the ring coming from the parallel compression, which I will get to later. So I need a bit with some fast double kick stuff. This will work. Yeah, see, it's just barely kind of kissing it on the single hits, but on the double, like the really fast double kick stuff, it ducks it back a little bit, which can be a good thing. And now I'm going to make sure that I've got these level matched, because when you're doing compression, you want to make sure like the signal going in and coming out of the compressor is the same volume, because if they're not, our ears will automatically perceive anything that's louder as being better. And we want to make sure that what we're doing actually sounds better. So I'm going to show you how to level match here, which you'll use. This is the output level knob for this compressor. So I'll bypass it. Yeah, so just a little, it ducks it back a little bit for that. And then I'm going to go over here to my EQ, and I'm going to, is this going to work? Oh, shit, no. Okay, I'm not going to use this EQ. Never mind, I lied. I'm going to add in, this is Pro EQ. It's a stock Studio One EQ, and pretty much any DAW will have an EQ like this stock. I'm going to do high and low pass filtering with this EQ, and probably some more boosting and cutting in the lows, somewhere in the mids, and probably like a high upper mid boost here for some more attack and some just violence on that kick drum. All right, a lot of this down here is stuff that we can't hear as humans, so we'll do like a high pass filter and just chop out anything below, I'll say 47 hertz for this kick. You can't hear much of a difference, especially if you're like watching on a phone or some computer speakers. Where this cut right here will make a big difference is in like a low-end heavy sound system, such as what you would have if you're listening in a car or something like that, or some really bassy headphones. So that'll just keep that low end clean on the kick. And I'm going to do a boost in the lows. Nothing too crazy, just a little bit of a boost. And I'm going to find some honky mids, and I'm going to scoop them out. All right, and now I'll bring in some high mids to give it a bit more attack. And then a high cut just to get some unnecessary high frequencies out of there. Not bad. Not a bad starter for the kick sound there. Then I'm going to hop over here and I'm going to do the same thing. One thing that I found is like with drum close mics, I've kind of always wound up doing similar moves on all the shells. It usually winds up being like a low boost, low mid cut, a high mid boost, and a high boost to get the sound to where I want it to be. So I'm just going to roll through this snare now, and then I'll probably wind up copying over the same plugins and even going as far as doing similar settings, but just, geared toward the drum. Actually, the more I'm messing around with it, I'm not sure that this snare needs a big cut here. I might actually give it like a small boost around 1.5K because that sounds like it gives it some more smackiness. Also kind of brings those ghost notes forward a bit. think that sounds pretty good. And I'll pull over the fat channel here, and I'm going to jump over to this compressor. And with the snare, I'm just going to go about for 1 to 3 decibels of gain reduction on really hard hits, because that'll bring down the transient a little bit and make it a bit more manageable. And it'll also have the added benefit of bringing up some sustain from the drum as well, which can be cool. Yeah, see, it has a bit more sustain, and it pops a bit harder because of the way that the compressor kind of knocks down the transient a little bit, and we're able to bring the volume forward, and it'll bring sustain forward, so it gives the perceived effect of the snare hitting harder. Okay, now I'm gonna skip over here, and I'm gonna add in my Pro EQ. I could probably just go to recent. Bam, Pro EQ. Get rid of all this super low stuff under about 70 hertz. Add in a little low boost. I like a lot of bottom end in snare drums, personally. I like them to just smack. Carve out these highs. I'm going to do one more search for honky mids on this snare, since I've got this. This is a bit more precise EQ than the one that we're using on here for our general tone shaping. Yeah, I knew I was hearing that in there, that little bit of honk. Okay, so that's dealt with now. So I'm going to do another little high mid boost here and see what I can find that sounds good to give it a bit more attack. Yeah, see, not doing a whole lot with this layer of EQ. Just, you know, little lows, dumping out a little ugly mid stuff and adding in a bit of brightness to, or a bit of attack to the snare. All right. For now, I'm going to skip the toms, because in this there's only a couple sections with toms, but we will get there, and I'm going to jump straight to the cymbals now. Now with the cymbals, sometimes I'll wind up doing a cut on the highs. It all depends on the particular drum kit, and the type of cymbals and all that kind of stuff of the source. Give a bit of brightness here, nothing too crazy. With cymbals, I'm typically not gonna boost lows or low mids. I might give it some upper mid stuff here. Little super slight boost there at about 5K. This is really not doing much at all. And I'm gonna scoop around or sweep around and see if I can find anything ugly with this mid filter here. Nope, nothing really there worth dealing with. I'm gonna add another instance of this fat channel here. I'm going to try out some compression on this. I was messing with this last night. With pre-mixed drum kits, a lot of times I don't really like to add in compression because they're already compressed, and with cymbal compression, it's something that if you overdo it, it can be really bad. So I'm just going to mess with this. 4:1 ratio. This is an 1176 style compressor. Yeah, I've just got it. This is okay. I've got it set so that it's just it's really just kind of grabbing the snare hits, and occasionally it'll grab a loud cymbal hit for a little bit of dynamic control. Nothing too extreme there. I'm going to add in a Pro Q here, and I'm just going to, I know that with cymbals, I'm going to take out probably everything below 500 hertz. And then I'm going to cut out some of these super high frequencies, probably about 14K or so. And with cymbals, you can get like ugly resonant frequencies, and I'm going to show you how to find those and deal with those really quick. What you'll do is you'll take your stock EQ, and you'll make the Q, the bandwidth, very, very thin, and then you can take and boost this and sweep it around and find ugly frequencies in your cymbal hits, and remove a little bit of that, and it will make your cymbals sound a little bit more sweet and easy on the ears than being like super harsh, which can come like this. You know, these upper frequency boosts here, while they overall they sound good, they can also have the unintended effect of kind of boosting some ugly frequencies with them, which we then have to do a narrow cut and kind of deal with some of that. That's a real ugly one, so I'm going to get rid of a little bit of that, and see, like, these are even super small cuts, not too extreme here. I'll usually do like 2 to 3 of these. If you do more than 2 or 3, you run the risk of really taking away the life and character of your track. So just search around and find 2 or 3 of the worst sounding ones of the bunch, and you'll be good to go. And I'll let you hear the difference with and without this EQ. Pretty subtle difference, but it certainly makes all that a little bit easier on the ears, the cymbals. And we'll also do this with our distorted bass track and our distorted guitar tracks as we move on. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to hit is the drum room. Again, I like a little bit of a top boost on the drum room. If they're not too cymbally, if the drum rooms have a shitload of cymbals, I'll darken them a lot with EQ. But from where I was using this Get Good Drums library, I was able to back off the cymbals in the room mics, so that's not much of an issue here. See, there's barely any cymbal in there. So I can get away with some pretty aggressive top-end boosting here on these rooms. But I'm going to play everything in context, and I will approach this as I would. You'll see here, again, it'll be likely similar boosting and cutting pattern to what I did on the close mics. Okay, so see, you know, pretty similar stuff EQ-wise. It's all about just learning how to identify what frequencies work boosted and cut to your ears and to the source. You just got to do it a bunch to really figure it out. I'm going to add a couple more plugins here. I'm going to add in this fat channel. Again, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to turn on the compressor, but I'm going to pull up the 1176, and I'm actually going to go with a more intense ratio on the compression here because I really smack the rooms with this compressor. I'm going to go with a really fast release because I want it to really excite and be explosive. And I'll let you hear the difference between the fast release and the slow release. I'll go with a kind of quick attack just to really really have the compressor smack down on those snare hits and really make the thing sound nice and explosive. I'm going to go over here to my EQ. I'm definitely going to get out the subs from this track. I'm going to hack off everything probably below 160 hertz. Get rid of some unnecessary high frequency information here with a low pass filter. I'm going to look for some honky mids. Sometimes room mics, especially when you smack the shit out of a compressor, can have a tendency to get some honky build-up-y shit in the mids. So I'm going to just search for some of that. And there it is. So I'm just going to do I'll kind of narrow that out because that's a pretty narrow band of frequency that's real honky there. Slight boost around 5K. And all right, now I need to hit these toms. The cool thing with toms is a lot of times they take very similar processing across the board. So if you process one tom, you can usually get away with using the same style of EQ and compression across all the toms on the kit. Sometimes the EQ will have to change if you're going from a really high tom to a really low tom. Certain things will have to be shifted a little bit here and there. But it's usually, you can get away with using pretty broadly the similar settings. So I'm just going to loop this section here with this tom roll. I'm actually going to use this to actually boost this a bit because it's kind of quiet. Give that a boost at about 250. I'm going to pull out some 350 on this one, about 350. All right, I'm gonna just grab this same fat channel because this may work okay, like this same compressor setting here. Yeah, I'm gonna bring down the peak reduction a bit because I want to grab this at about 3 decibels gain reduction. Oh, that was way overkill. Yeah, with the toms, what the compression will kind of do is where it squashes the transient a bit, it'll help bring the whole thing forward because you can get them a bit louder in the mix. And then my handy dandy Pro EQ, again for a similar kind of low boost, low cut, mid scoop, upper mid boost, high cut kind of thing that you've seen me do on all the drums so far. All right, so here's our entire drum mix that we've got going on so far. Actually, I need to turn this down because this shit is clipping my output. I'm so sorry. All right, and that's what we've got going on with our drums so far. Not too shabby, I don't think. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control Shift and I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to add an FX channel. I'm going to call this Drum Comp because I'm going to do some parallel drum compression. I'm just going to add in, this is another freeware plugin. This is called Density. And for drum parallel compression, what you can do is you can be very, very, very extreme with the amount of compression that you apply, which is why I'm pretty conservative almost with what I do on each individual drum channel, because I know that I'm going to beat the shit out of a parallel compressor to bring out the characteristics of extremely compressed drums later on in the signal chain. So I wonder if I can solo this. Yeah, so here's what this sounds like just by itself. And I'm just going to bring up the drive knob on this because I believe, I can't remember if it's range or drive. I used to use this plugin a lot, but when I switched to Studio One, I did not have a 64-bit version of this. When I was looking into stuff for doing this video, I found that they had done 64-bit versions of these plugins. I think the variety of sound stuff is only for Windows users. I'm sorry if you're watching this on a Mac. You can use any compressor to do this, but with for parallel compression, you want extreme compression settings, and you're going to mix that in. I'm going to bring down some of the kick that's going into the parallel compression because I want that to be primarily for the snare. All right, that's cool, but I kind of want this to be a bit nastier. Because I like my parallel compression to really slam. Right now, I'm going to show you this as is in parallel with the drums. I'm going to drop the volume of this all the way down, and I'll bring it in. Okay, so the way I'm going to get this to be more extreme is I'm going to add a Studio One plugin called Red Light Distortion. This is a distortion plugin. So I'm going to distort the parallel compression after I've compressed it. So yeah, you can see this sounds really bad on its own, but when you blend it in with a drum kit, it's pretty gnarly. So yeah, there you have it. That is parallel drum compression, and that is how I kind of get away with going pretty conservatively on compression with my drum close mics. All right, and this last little element we got here. Actually, I need to EQ this really quickly. So I'm gonna go to my good old standard here, Pro EQ. No, the funny thing about this is I use this plugin on every single mix I do, all over it. There can be sometimes some low end buildup in your parallel compression, which I'll sweep around and see if I can find anything ugly in the low end. Yeah, that sounds pretty bad to me, so I'm gonna just dump that out, and then I'll do a high cut and just get out some of the unnecessary high frequencies. Sometimes in your parallel compression, there can be some upper mid shit that's kind of ugly. It can, I don't know, I'm going to do is, I'm hearing some of that, so I'm going to get rid of it, find it and get rid of it. Yeah, that right there. I'm just going to do a little bit of a scoop there. I might make that a bit wider. So. All right, now there is our drum processing and our parallel compression. And now we're to the point, I'm going to throw a limiter on here just so I can stop this from clipping. This is the stock, good old stock Studio One limiter. This is just going to stop this from clipping our output. Now we are going to move on to bass. With the bass processing on this, I've taken my DI and I reamped it, probably through my Axe FX, into a clean track and a filth track. So I'm going to mute these drums and I'm going to solo the bass clean track and let you hear what that sounds like on its own. All right, and now I'll solo out the filth track and let you hear what it sounds like on its own. All right, and these are two radically different sounds, right? So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add an EQ to both of these tracks. For the clean track, I'm going to put on a low pass filter, and I'm going to filter this down to about 500 hertz. So all I have for the clean track is then I'll take out some sub, probably down to about 40 hertz. And then I'm going to... Oh my gosh, I did that to the filth track. No wonder it wasn't sounding good. Okay. All right, so now that'll be what happens, kind of where the clean track lives. And then, but you know, you can hear it's kind of like that's nothing but low end, you know. So for the definition, we put a high pass filter instead of a low pass, and I'll put that around 500 hertz as well. So I'm removing all the low frequencies from the distorted track, and I'm removing all the high frequencies from the clean track. And then you get the blend going out to the bass bus, which sounds like this. And I think as far as the channels are concerned, I'm going to do pretty minimal stuff here. I'm going to keep most of this to the bass bus. I was hearing some kind of like rowdy, like ugly frequencies here in this bass track, in the clean track, which I'll deal with. Yeah, that resonance there is kind of ugly. It's making the clean track not so pleasant. Okay, and then on the high track, because of the nature of how distorted that it is, I know that there are going to be some ugly frequencies living in here, so I'm going to sweep around and find them very quickly. And remember, when you're getting rid of these ugly resonant frequencies, remember, try not to go over 2 or 3 of them, because it can really kind of neuter your sound if you do a whole lot more than that. Yeah, so you hear it's a pretty massive difference just from these EQ moves that I've done from the state with no processing. Sounds a lot more like a metal bass guitar, right? All right, so I'm going to hop over here to my bass bus. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in the stock Studio One compressor. I'm going to set the makeup gain to auto, so that will automatically gain stage this, which would be cool. I'm going to set the attack time pretty quickly, and kind of similarly with the release, because I really kind of want this to going to set the threshold probably about -15, and I'll pipe some audio into it and see what we got. And I want this. I'm going to see. I'm going to have to experiment around with this. All right, what I'm doing here is I'm kind of pinning the bass. I'm compressing it kind of hard, which you can see that's about, it's pretty decent amount of compression. I actually could get away with more. That auto makeup gain is not doing it here. All right, and what I'm doing with this compressor is I'm kind of intentionally squashing the dynamics of the bass, because I want the level of the bass to be consistent, and I want the bass to be strong and powerful throughout the whole thing. And now that I'm compressing this, I think I could go with dropping down the volume of this filth track just a bit. Okay, and another thing that I noticed, I need to throw a gate on here because this this track is pretty messy in the stops. Okay, and I'm just getting rid of noise in the gaps here, as I'll show you now. Okay, so I've got that cleaned up. And now I'm going to bring the drums in. Because from here, the type of processing that I do on the bass will be, I want to hear how it's going to mesh with the drums as I'm doing it. Okay, so I know on my kick, I did this boost here around 150 hertz on that EQ, and I boosted around 115, so the same kind of general area. So to kind of help keep my kick and my bass from fighting each other, I'm going to do a little bit of a cut in the same area on the bass that I boosted on the kick to give them some separation. And I'll boost in an area of the bass where I cut on the kick to give each its own unique space to live in the mix. I had a high cut, and you can see that I went ahead and I boosted down here at around 70 hertz to give my bass some really fat sub, really fat low end. And I gave it a slight boost here around 1.4K to give it a little bit of growl. I'll solo out the bass bus and turn that particular band on and off. So yeah, that helps the All right, and I think we are ready to move on to some guitars now. So now I'll unmute this guitar bus. For the guitar processing, I like that tone. The reason I turned that down is because up higher, it was causing the limiter up here to pump, which I don't like. I'll actually undo that. And yeah, as you probably heard when I pulled that up way up, it was getting real squishy and not good sounding. That was the limiter over here on the 2 bus starting to pump. So I wanted to get rid of that because I don't like it. All right, I kind of like this guitar tone that I've used here. I will really quickly though, just to show you kind of how I would approach dialing in a guitar tone. I will pull up a freeware plugin and show you what I would do. Let's see, Ignite amps, and I'm going to pull up Ignite Emissary. I'm going to add in NadIR, which is their impulse response loader. And I'm going to load up some ML Sound Lab impulse responses here. The ML Sound Lab impulse responses are not free. They are paid, but they are very reasonably priced, and they're awesome. Ignite is free, NadIR is free, and I'm going to also load in a free overdrive pedal from Ignite Amps. Yeah, here we go. The Tyrant Screamer. This is an overdrive. So, as far as how I like an M160 and a 57 for guitars. So I'm going to go, this is probably my fairly standard impulse responses that I would grab for. And I'll let you hear what this all sounds like. This also needs a gate, so I'm going to use the stock Studio One gate. And now I'm going to set up this amp sim. I kind of like this cab IR sound. But this amp tone needs some work. So I'm going to, first thing I'm going to do is drop down the gain. yeah, this is a pretty badass amp sim for a free plugin, y'all. So if you don't have this, you should grab it just because it rules for being free. So now I'm going to set up this overdrive, which this is a Tube Screamer style overdrive, but like a hyped up version of it, which I really like for a freeware plugin. So I'm going to go the pretty standard, super bright tone, super loud level, super low drive, and I'll show you what the sweep and boost switches do. They just kind of, the sweep kind of changes where the center of the tone is, which is neat because you can, you know, take it higher and get more like brighter sounds. The boost will give it more gain. So I'll start with it off, and then I'm going to loop this riff, and I'll start with this turned off, and I'll kick it on, and I'll play with these settings so you can see like how I would approach it. But I'm probably going to use the reamps for the purpose of the mix, just because I like the sound of my Axe FX, or I think this might have actually been the 6505. I'm not sure though. See how that compares to my original tone for it. That's funny. Those are wildly close. Yeah, those are wildly close. Fuck it, I'm gonna roll with the plugin. So now that I've got my tone dialed in, I'm gonna copy these over. So I have that big wide and in stereo for my guitar tracks, and I'm gonna mute these original reamps that I've done for this and roll with the plugin. Zero both these out because I want these to be about the same, you know, the same level. Okay, I'm going to process these, and for this, I'm just going to use my handy dandy Pro EQ. For super low tune guitars, for guitars in general, I like to hack off low end. Generally, the lower tuned and like more distorted, the higher I will push this. And I do that because, especially with low tune guitars, I do not want them fighting the bass. I want the bass and the guitars to each live in their own space. And yeah, so I'm going to just run through, because I'll pretty much do this. I might do like a boost somewhere around here to make them cut a bit more. And I'll do some upper mid cleanup stuff dealing with those resonant frequencies. All pretty standard stuff as far as like getting your guitars to sit right. And yeah, I'm going to just do that real quick. Now I'll pan this back over, I'll copy this onto here, and I'll see how everything works together. jump back over to this kick and do a couple adjustments now that I'm hearing everything in context. I might push some of these boosts a bit more. All right, I'm gonna do one more thing to this bass bus. I'm gonna throw a limiter on here, and I'm gonna dom this limiter pretty hard on the bass bus just to really pin it, and really bring that bass to a consistent volume throughout the whole thing. All right, cool. So now I want to throw a density on here as a bus compressor to kind of show you all some bus compression. And then some things in the mix balance-wise may have to be tweaked after I set this up, because I'm going to start with just my drums going. I like my bus compressor to grab some on the snare, and that's how I'll set it, and then I'll mix into it. So I will just get right on this. All right, the reason I kind of like to do this with the drums starting is because the parallel compressor here with the kind of settings that I've got, like I've got it going pretty fast, mixed at 100%. I've got it pushing about 2 to 6 dB here and there. Yeah, really kind of staying between 2 and 4. I wonder, is there... Yeah, so now I'm going to work on adding the bass in. There it is. There's that ugly frequency on the bass. Okay. All right, yeah, there's a little weird frequency there, and the way I'm going to deal with this is with a multi-band compressor. It's a stock Studio One. So I think this is probably somewhere in the high mids. So I'm going to solo out this high mid band, and I'm going to try and find this frequency range that I'm hearing that's bugging me. All right, that's not in the high mids. Try the mids. Nope, not in the mids. That is a low frequency. Okay, so I'm going to take this because you can see here that this frequency band, throughout most of this, it's fine. It has a tendency to jump up right in this run. So since that's something that's not really a problem throughout the whole piece, but it is in that one section, I'm just going to take this multi-band compressor and I'm going to set the low threshold to kind of just dip out on that frequency a bit. And I'll let you hear what that sounds like. Here is without it. Yeah, it's really bugging me there in that one part. So, but the multi-band compression deals with that pretty beautifully, which is cool. All right, I think now it is time to start bringing in some of these synthesizers and all this kind of craziness I've got going on here. The violin. Okay, so these, the violin and the cello in this kind of accent one another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack a folder here for these two. And I'm going to go here, I'm going to add a bus channel. And then I'm going to make it so I can see the in and out connections. And I'm going to route this to my synth bus. And this will be my strings. So it'll just be cool if I can process these together. All right, I'm gonna take it pretty easy on these. I'm gonna pull in that same freeware plugin that I was using a bit ago on the drums back here, the Booty Q. Again, this one is a freeware. And on this one, I probably will get into this a little bit. I'm going to turn the tube on, turn it to vintage. Okay, and then I'm going to bring up my old pal Pro EQ here. Get out this honk here in the low mids, and I might pull out something from here up top. Okay, so that's how I'm gonna treat the strings. Yeah. So pretty straightforward. And now I'm gonna go for the sine bell track here, which this is an interesting one. So for this one, the first thing I'm going to do is pull up the red light distortion plugin that I was using a little bit ago. And I'm going to kind of might crank this a little bit on here. Okay, so you can hear there are some harsh resonant frequencies in there, which I'm going to deal with them as I would on a guitar or anything else. And I think that'll probably be about all I do here. I'll probably will cut out some lows and some super harsh highs that are unnecessary. And yeah. All right, and my next set of tracks that are going through the beginning of this is the Creepy Swell, which this is a really cool one. I'll solo that out for you. Okay, so add on the booty cue here. And I'm going to probably crank the drive on this. Give it some highs. Probably pull out some high mids. Alright, now I'll add on my Pro EQ. And I'll approach the EQ to this fairly simple. This one is not as distorted as I made the sine bells. So I'm not going to have to do quite as much sweeping for the resonant frequencies, but there are some in there that I'm hearing that need dealt with. And it's the same kind of operating procedure for dealing those as it has been the other ones on the guitars and the other synths and the bass. All right, and now we'll get everything in context and see how it sounds. All right, and now the next set of tracks that we have going through this part are these vocal synth tracks, which I'm going to approach these fairly similarly to how I did the strings, because honestly, these kind of sound like a bass string. Okay, so I'm going to take over this booty cue. I'm going to set it fairly neutrally. And another thing that I'm going to do is I am definitely going to add a red light distortion to there. Oh, hold on, I need to pack folder. Sorry, y'all. Then add bus channel, and then I'm going to route that out to strings and synth, and then I'll actually pull these processors over here. Got a little bit of a low boost here. Actually, I think I'm going to shy away from low boosts because I think I want to make these more mid-centric. A low pass here. I was kind of dealing with a resonant frequency there. All right, now we're down to the post-production on the second little half of this, and I'll go through what we've got here, what these are. So I've got a synth, I've got called Dark Piano, and I've got this one, which is a heaviosity thing called Vocalizer. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to treat is going to be the dark synth track. So I'm going to go for booty cue again. Okay, and then I'll throw, I think I'm going to red light distort this one as well. This one gets mixed in super, super low. Definitely going to hack off some high frequencies from this one. mellow out that band there in the middle. And do a little dip there. I think that is a pretty solid sound on that. And another thing I'll probably do is I'll probably add a reverb. Actually, I'm going to make a reverb send for all of these. Okay, so you'll add an FX channel, same kind of way that I did with this. And for now, I'm going to drop this down to nothing. And I'm going to call this the synth verb. And I'm going to send all of these to this synth verb track. And I'm going to look and see if Studio One has a stock reverb plugin. See what we got, what we got, what we got. We have a room reverb. See how this sounds. And I'm going to EQ the crap out of this reverb. Just, you know, broad band dips here to deal with some kind of harsh resonant frequencies that are going on. And yeah, I've got all those synths going to that now. So let's see kind of what these are all going to sound like going to this reverb. Now I need to deal with this one. I'm going to do the same kind of deal here. I'm going to go with boot EQ. I don't think I'm going to distort this one, though. So I'm going to dive back in here, and I was about to start processing this vocalized track. That's a heaviosity instrument. So I'm going to go with the boot EQ. I'm going to crank this drive up, tube on, vintage on, bam. Then I'll just go ahead and add in a pro EQ, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to red light distort this one as well. But I'm going to start with that one bypassed. Okay, now I'll throw on the red light distortion and see how much I want to juice this up. actually think I'm going to skip the red light on this one. I'm not too fond of what it's doing to the sound. I'm going to go ahead and start my regular EQing here. Look for ugly frequencies. I'm not too happy with the balance right here, so I'm just gonna play around with some balancing with all this post stuff versus the rest of the elements that I've got going on in the mix. Alright, I'm going to slot our drum post bus over here just so it's with the other post bus. And I think that sits a lot better now. The balance stuff that I did there. Alright. So the drum post bus. I want to see what we got going on back here. Okay, it looks like I got a bass drop. I'm just going to solo out this. I have a crash swell, snare bomb samples, and snare swells. And I'm going to play just what this bus sounds like by itself for you through this section. And then I will get to how I'm going to treat everything. Okay, so, you know, I've got the pretty run-of-the-mill snare swell, crash swell. Those I'll probably just balance. I won't do really any processing to them. I will process the bass drop, and I'm going to show you what to do with this snare bomb sample. Because all this is a print of a room mic sample from the GGD Architects kit. So, you know, by that, it's just a regular room mic sample, which we've already got going on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a reverb on, and I want a large haul. Like, I want this to be big, right? I want this to be massive. And I'm going to crank the mix to 100%. Okay, let me... There we go. Now let me try this out with the drums in context, because this is supposed to be a snare bomb. Hope if I unmuted the bus. That's not near loud enough. I'm going to actually raise the volume of the track that's feeding this, because I feel like it's just not getting enough level. There we go. That is more like a snare bomb. Alright, now I'm going to EQ this. And really what I want to do is I want to get rid of the lows. And I want to get rid of frequencies that are going to build up there, so I'm just going to solo this out. That one. Do a scoop there. Take out some of these harsh highs. Do a sweep in the upper mids to see if there's anything ugly there. Do a little bit of a narrow dip. Make this room a bit bigger again. Okay, and now I'm going to incorporate in the snare swells, which this will be one that I probably don't do much to. Yep, okay, so there's my snare swell. Easy money there. What do we got here? Cymbal swell, crash swell. That'll probably wind up just getting left as is. Alright. Okay, so now we're on to the sub hit. This one sounds pretty processed already. What I am going to do is throw on the stock Studio One compressor. And I'm just going to compress it a little bit. Give it probably a pretty quick attack. And maybe a faster release. Medium slow. A little bit slower release. Try that out in context. What that does is give the bass drop a bit of length, the way that I've got it squashed there. feel like that needs a bit more impact though. So I'm actually going to drop in an impact here. I'm going to go... Yeah, I'm going to go down here to Ghost Hack Cinematic Trailer SFX. And I'm going to browse for some impacts. Kind of like that one there. Just add a stereo track. And boom, drop in a fat impact here. I'll route that to my drum post bus. Then I'll balance it. I'm actually going to chop this way down because I just want this to kind of explode at the beginning of this. And I want it to fade in to being the bass drop, so. So that by itself just sounds like this. Just with the bass drop. And then in context. I actually think I'm going to bring everything down around the drum bus. Because I feel like the drums need to poke out more, but I don't want to just turn them up. I'd rather bring everything down around them. Need some more guitars, I think. Might bring that post up just a hair. I'm going to step away from this for a little bit. I'm going to bounce this out and listen to it on some headphones, and I'll be back and see if there are any things that I want to address already. And I am back again. I listened to it on my reference monitors in my room, and I noticed some things that I wasn't too stoked on that I'd done, and I want to head back through here and address them. The first thing, I want to rework and rebalance this post bus yet again. Mainly because I went way too crazy on this drive here. was I think it was too loud. Another thing that I noticed was I think it's on the drum rooms. There's some sizzly upper mids that I'm not too crazy about on the snare hits. Yeah, that's it right there. It's just funny because I'd actually boosted there a little bit ago, so that was kind of dumb, I guess. All right, here we go. I'm gonna try throwing on this Navy Q on here because I'm still not super loving the low end on the kick. I need a little more ass out of that, I think. I kind of like that, like 5 decibel low shelf there at 220 hertz on this EQ in the Fat channel, which is a Studio One Pro stock plugin. Hitting that limiter a bit hard once I did that adjustment to the kick. It's making it a bit pumpy. Okay. Some racket on the bass filth track. So I'll get rid of that there. Okay. I'm also kind of thinking I might lose this compressor on the overheads. I think yeah, I might push the one that's on this booty cue a bit. Yeah, so I'm just going to get rid of this Fat channel instance that I've got going there and just roll with this one in the Pro EQ. All right, and I want to now throw an EQ up here, and I want to address... This is just something that I like to do when I'm mixing. Typically I would mix into this, but it's kind of, you know, it's called like top-down mixing, where you kind of set up some processing on your bus before you get started. But I wanted to show you guys more a bottom-up approach, just because with the top-down stuff, you've really kind of got to pay like close attention to how everything's set up. So I'm just gonna try to do this now that I have this in a pretty good spot. So yeah, the first thing I want to do is I like to add like a low shelf, just give it like a little boost on the low end across the whole track. Nothing too extreme. And when I do this, I'll also put a high pass filter at around 40 hertz. And then I'll engage a high cut filter at about 15K. And I'll also do a high shelf way up top here. So nothing too crazy. It just gives a little bit of a sense of a perceived sense of like polish to the whole thing. And one last thing that I'll do, I would use this EQ to sweep around and find ugly resonant frequencies throughout the whole mix. And I'll probably do 2 to 3 here, just like I would on guitars and things. Probably less extreme cuts. Now the difference will be a lot more noticeable. I'm going to play this through and kick this on and off as I go. All right, I'm going to let this play through from the top to the end. There needs to be an impact right there. That just needs to hit like a ton of bricks. So I'm actually going to grab this one, copy it in, and I'll probably let it exist at its full length. I'm gonna try doing something real quick with just the guitar reamps that I've done. I'll keep this super simple here, and this is just because I want to see if I can get these to work any better than the ones that I did with the plugin. All right, I'm hearing the compressor and the limiter get a bit pumpy on the two bus, so I'm going to select all these effect sends and the buses and just roll them back in volume slightly. I definitely like the Axe Effects guitar tones a lot better than I did the ones I got in the plugin. The ones in the plugin were okay, but since I had at least I guess it's the Axe Effects. I honestly don't remember what the hell I used. But yeah. All right, I am back here at this one last time. The only thing that I want to adjust now is I want to slightly rebalance the post-production again and bring it up, because it's still, I don't think it's quite loud enough because I dropped it down very heavily a little bit ago. Sweet. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up some more because I really feel like that's kind of what makes this sound super evil and dark, is like that post-production element. So now I'm going to export out a mix, and we're done here. bad, I don't think, for something done on headphones using entirely stock plugins and freeware. Yeah, I think I can live with that. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you're still watching, please give me a like and a subscribe. It would be awesome, and I will keep more stuff coming at you kind of like this. Thank you very much.